Washington. Most people hear the name and think Seattle, coffee, and rain. Just another rainy Pacific Northwest state, right? Wrong, because Washington has a desert that receives less rain than Los Angeles, just 70 miles from a rainforest that gets 12 feet annually. It contains over 3,000 glaciers, more than any other state in the lower 48, and it was carved by 40 separate megafloods so powerful they moved water 10 times faster than all the world's rivers combined. This isn't just Starbucks and Microsoft. It's a state split in half by a mountain range that creates two completely different climates, where ancient floods scour the landscape into alien-looking scablands, and where a single rainstorm dumps more water in one spot than an entire year in another just 70 miles away. Today, we're counting down 12 facts about Washington. And by fact number 1, you'll understand why Washington contains more geographic extremes packed into one state than anywhere else on the West Coast. The final facts will prove it. Be sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss more wild geography from across the world. Number 12. Washington has more than 3,000 glaciers, the most in the lower 48. Washington contains over 3,000 glaciers, more than any other state in the contiguous United States. Mount Rainier alone has 25 major glaciers covering 35 square miles. The Emmons Glacier on Rainier is the largest glacier in the lower 48 by area, 4.3 square miles of moving ice. Stand at Paradise on Mount Rainier and you're looking at an active ice age still grinding away. That's not a mountain. That's a frozen continent in miniature. Number 11. The Cascade Range splits Washington into two entirely different worlds. The Cascade Mountains cut Washington in half, creating two states within one border. Western Washington gets marine climate. Eastern Washington gets continental extremes. The West sees mild winters and cool summers. The East gets Arctic cold and scorching heat. Drive across the Snoqualmie Pass, and in 30 minutes, you'll cross from dense rainforest into semi-arid shrubland. The Cascades don't just divide geography, they divide climate, vegetation, and reality itself. Number 10. Sequim gets 16 inches of rain per year. Forks gets 120 inches. Here's where it gets a little insane. Sequim, Washington sits in the Olympic rain shadow and receives just 16 inches of rain annually, less than Los Angeles. But drive 70 miles west to Forks and the annual rainfall jumps to 120 inches, 12 feet of rain. Driving just an hour and a half gets you 7.5 times more rain. The Olympic Mountains wring every drop of moisture from Pacific air on the western slopes, leaving Sequim bone dry on the eastern side. You're standing in a desert. Drive an hour and you're drowning. Let's be honest, that's not weather variation. That's geographic schizophrenia. And the geographic weirdness is just getting started. Number 9. Eastern Washington was carved by 40-plus megafloods, each 10 times all world rivers combined. Between 15,000 and 13,000 years ago, at least 40 separate catastrophic floods ripped across eastern Washington. These weren't normal floods. When glacial Lake Missoula's ice dam broke in Montana, 500 cubic miles of water, half the volume of Lake Michigan, exploded across the Columbia Plateau at speeds up to 80 miles per hour. The water flow equaled 10 times the combined flow of every river on Earth. Each flood lasted days. Then, the ice dam reformed. The lake refilled in 40 years. And it happened again, 40 times. The floods scoured away all topsoil, carved 60-mile-long canyons called coulees, and left eastern Washington looking like an alien planet. That's not erosion. That's planetary resurfacing. Number 8. The channeled scablands look like Mars, and NASA uses them to study other planets. The Missoula megafloods carved eastern Washington into a landscape so bizarre, geologists called it channeled scablands. Imagine interconnected canyons hundreds of feet deep with no rivers, giant ripples in gravel bars 30 feet tall, and house-sized boulders scattered across the desert. NASA uses the scablands to study similar flood-carved terrain on Mars. When satellites revealed massive flood channels on Mars in the 1970s, geologists realized they looked identical to Washington's scablands. You're not just walking across Earth, you're walking across a preview of another planet. Number 7. Lake Chelan is the third deepest lake in the U.S. at 1,486 feet deep. Lake Chelan plunges 1,486 feet deep, making it the third deepest lake in the United States. Only Crater Lake in Oregon and Lake Tahoe in California go deeper. The lake bottom sits 390 feet below sea level, deeper than much of the North Sea. Glaciers carved through this trough during the Ice Age, gouging a canyon that filled with meltwater. The lake stretches 55 miles long, but averages just 1 mile wide. That's not a lake. That's a fjord carved into mountains 200 miles from the ocean. Number 6. Washington grows more than 300 different crops, from apples to wine grapes. Eastern Washington's volcanic soil and rain shadow create perfect agricultural conditions. The state produces more apples than any other state, 65% of America's supply. It also leads in hops, pears, sweet cherries, and spearmint oil. Over 300 different crops grow here. The Yakima Valley alone grows 75% of America's hops. Every IPA you drink, that's Washington in a can. Gang, before we get to the top 5 facts that prove why Washington is geographically insane, remember to subscribe and hit that bell. These final facts will blow your mind. Number 5. Dry Falls was the largest waterfall on Earth, 5 times wider than Niagara. During the Missoula floods, a waterfall called Dry Falls roared to life in central Washington. It was 3.5 miles wide and 400 feet tall, 5 times wider than Niagara Falls. The water flow over Dry Falls during peak flooding dwarfed every waterfall on Earth combined. Then, the floods stopped. The falls went dry. Today, you can stand at the cliff edge and look down at the canyon carved by the largest waterfall in Earth's history. Completely silent. No water, just wind and basalt. That's not a waterfall. That's a ghost of planetary scale hydraulics. Number 4. 4 of the 5 longest floating bridges in the world are in Washington. Washington is home to 4 of the 5 largest floating bridges on Earth. The Evergreen Floating Bridge stretches 7,710 feet across Lake Washington, the longest floating bridge in the world. The Hood Canal Bridge, Lacey V. Murrow Bridge, and Homer M. Hadley Bridge complete the list. Why floating bridges? The lakes are too deep, and the lake bed's too soft for traditional pilings. Engineers literally float concrete pontoons across the water. Drive across Lake Washington, and you're driving on water held up by physics. Number 3. Mount Rainier could send massive mud flows towards Seattle. Mount Rainier is an active volcano, and geologists classify it as one of the most dangerous in the world. The mountain is capped with more than 35 square miles of glacial ice. When Rainier erupts, not if but when, the heat would rapidly melt that ice, triggering lahars, fast-moving volcanic mud flows capable of racing down river valleys at high speeds. These flows wouldn't stop at the mountain's base. They could surge deep into populated areas of the Seattle-Tacoma region, overwhelming communities, infrastructure, and entire valleys. The last major eruption occurred roughly 1,000 years ago. Rainier has been quiet for an unusually long period of time. That's not just a mountain. That's a geologic threat hiding in plain sight. Number 2. The Hoh rainforest gets 12 to 14 feet of rain annually, one of the wettest places in the U.S. The Hoh rainforest on the Olympic Peninsula is one of the wettest places in the continental United States, receiving 12 to 14 feet of rain every year, 140 to 170 inches. Everything drips. Moss covers every surface: trees, rocks, fallen logs. The forest floor is a sponge. Sitka spruce and western hemlock grow to massive sizes in the perpetual moisture. Walk through the Hoh and you're breathing water. The air's so saturated you feel like you're underwater. That's not rain. That's a climate soaked to the molecular level. And number 1. Washington contains glaciers, deserts, rainforests, and volcanoes, all in one state. After 11 facts, here's the ultimate truth. Washington contains temperate rainforest receiving 14 feet of rain annually, deserts getting 7 inches, over 3,000 glaciers, 5 active volcanoes, megaflood-carved scablands, and lakes 1,486 feet deep. Drive 4 hours from Seattle and you'll cross rainforest, volcanic peaks, alpine tundra, and high desert. The state experiences every climate zone except tropical. That's not geographic diversity. That's an entire continent's worth of landscapes crammed into 71,000 square miles. Now you understand why Washington contains more extremes than any other state on the West Coast. Because it packs glaciers and deserts, rainforest and scablands, all within a single border. Washington isn't just rain and coffee. It's megafloods that carved alien landscapes, rain shadows creating deserts next to rainforests, and glaciers covering active volcanoes. It's rainfall varying by 7.5 times in 70 miles, and floating bridges spanning lakes too deep to build on. After learning these 12 facts about Washington, tell us which one shocked you the most and drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep exploring how geography shapes the world. See you in the next one.